Agatha Christie, The Adventure of the Clapham Cook featuring Hercule Poirot. At the time, I was living with my friend, Hercule Poirot. It had become something of a custom for me to read the morning headlines from the Daily Blair aloud to him. That particular paper never missed an opportunity to splash a sensation across its pages. One didn't have to hunt to the back columns for reports of robberies or murders. The bold, intriguing headlines practically leapt out at you. Bank clerk disappears with £50,000 in securities. Driven to despair by home life, wretched husband puts head in gas oven. Where is Edna Field? Missing typist. Pretty girl of 21. Well, Poirot, I said, take your pick. A runaway clerk, a mysterious suicide, or a missing typist. Which would you like to tackle? My friend shook his head with utter composure. None of these cases appeal to me. Today, I intend to rest. Only an event of the most extraordinary nature could tear me from my armchair. Besides, I have important matters of my own to attend to, such as my wardrobe, Hastings. If I am not mistaken, a grease spot has appeared on my new gray suit. It gives me no peace. Then my heavy overcoat must be packed away. And finally, I am certain, that the time has come to trim my mustache. I don't think, I remarked, moving toward the window, that you will find the time for such grand plans. The doorbell just rang. You have a client. I shall not see them. I refuse to engage in anything today, unless it is a matter of national importance. Poirot declared with great dignity. Our solitude was promptly interrupted by a stout, florid-faced lady. Are you Monsieur Poirot? She asked, catching her breath after the climb up the stairs and planting herself in an armchair. I am Hercule Poirot. You are not mistaken, madam. I imagined you quite differently, the lady said, eyeing my friend with clear disapproval. Tell me, do you pay the newspapermen, or do they simply praise you to the skies on their own? Madam, Poirot rose, offended. Oh, forgive me. You know how it is with the papers these days. You start reading an article titled, What the Bride Told Her Luckless Suitor, and it turns out to be about shampoo. Advertisements, all of them. I hope you're unoffended. Now, to business. I want you to find my cook. Poirot stared at her in a state of visible bewilderment, an occurrence, I must say, that was quite rare for him. I turned away, hiding an involuntary smile. It's all these newfangled ideas, the lady continued. They get it into their heads that they can be typists or God knows what else. I'd like to know what my servants have complained about. A day off every week. I send the laundry out, and they eat the same food we do. Why, we don't even know what margarine is in my house. Only the best butter. She paused for breath, and Poirot seized the opening. I fear you are mistaken, madam. I do not deal with the problems of domestic staff. I am a private detective. I know that, the visitor snapped. Otherwise, why would I ask you to find my cook? She walked out on Wednesday without a word, and I haven't seen her since. I am very sorry, madam, but I do not take on such cases. Good day to you. Well, I never... Is it pride, then? We only deal with government secrets and family jewels. Let me tell you this. A woman in my position needs a cook just as much as a duchess needs her tiara. We can't all be society ladies, driving about in motor cars, dripping with diamonds and pearls. A good cook is a good cook, and losing one is a real disaster. For a moment, it seemed a struggle was taking place in Poirot's soul. Finally, he gave a short laugh and sat back down. Madam, you are quite right. Your remarks are both sensible and just. Your case is exactly the matter of national importance I spoke of before you arrived. To be honest, I have never before been asked to find a missing servant. So let's begin. You say this invaluable cook of yours left on Wednesday and has not returned. That was the day before yesterday. Yes, it was her day out. But perhaps something happened to her. Did you check the hospitals? That's exactly what I thought yesterday. But this morning, she sent for her trunk. And not a single line to me. How do you like that? As luck would have it, I was out marketing at the time, or I wouldn't have let it go so easily. Could you describe your cook? Middle-aged, stout, dark hair turning gray. A very respectable-looking woman. Her name is Eliza Dunn. She'd been with us for 10 years. And there was no quarrel between you beforehand? That's just it, there wasn't. How many servants do you have, madam? Besides the cook, there's Annie, the house parlor maid. A very nice girl. A bit flighty and scatterbrained, but she does her work well enough if you keep an eye on her. Did she get along with the cook? Perfectly well, though naturally they had their moments. And this girl can explain nothing? She says not. Well, then we must look into this. You live at Clapham, number 88, Prince Albert Road. Bien, madam. I shall call upon you during the day. Mrs. Todd, for that was our new acquaintance's name, took her leave. Well, Hastings, we have a new case. There was a hint of melancholy in Poirot's voice. The disappearance of the Clapham cook. Our friend Inspector Japp will surely never hear the end of this. Using a hot iron and blotting paper, Poirot set about removing the spot from his suit. Afterward, with evident regret, he decided to postpone the grooming of his mustache for a more favorable occasion, and we set off for Clapham. Prince Albert Road proved to be a quiet little street. On either side stood identical, austere houses with neat lace curtains in the windows and bronze door knockers polished to a high shine. When we rang the bell at number 88, the door was opened by a pleasant-looking young girl. In the hallway, Mrs. Todd met us. "Annie, stay here," she said. "This gentleman is a detective, and he wishes to ask you a few questions." A conflict of emotions played across the girl's face. "Thank you, madam," Poirot said with a bow. "I should like to speak with your maid now, and if I may, in private." We were shown into a small drawing-room. As soon as Mrs. Todd had withdrawn, with evident reluctance, Poirot got straight to the point. "Mademoiselle Annie, what you have to tell us is of truly great importance. You alone can shed light on this mysterious occurrence. I cannot manage without your help." The anxiety vanished from the girl's face, replaced by a look of pleasant excitement. "Of course, sir. I'll tell you everything I know." "Very good." Poirot gave an encouraging smile. "First of all, what do you think of it yourself? You are clearly a very clever girl. Anyone can see that. How do you explain Eliza's disappearance?" Flattered, Annie began to wail excitedly. "White slavers, sir. I've said it all along. Eliza always used to warn me. Don't you look at how civil a lad is. Don't let yourself be bamboozled. And don't you dare sniff any perfumes or eat any sweets if they're offered." That's what she'd say. And now she's gone and got caught herself. I expect they've carried her off to Turkey or somewhere in the East. I've heard they like them plump over there. I watched Poirot with admiration. He managed to maintain a perfectly serious expression. But in that case, would she have sent for her things? I really don't know, sir. She might need her things even abroad. Who came for the trunk? Was it a man? It was Carter Patterson, sir, the carrier. And did you pack the things? No, sir. The trunk was already corded and ready. Aha! That is interesting. So, when Eliza left the house on Wednesday, she already knew she would not be returning. Do you agree? Yes, sir. Annie looked bewildered. I hadn't thought of that. But it could still have been the white slavers, couldn't it, sir? She added, almost regretfully. Undoubtedly. Poirot replied. Did you share a room with her? No. Sir, we had separate rooms. Did Eliza ever complain about her position? Were you happy here? She never breathed a word about leaving. It's a very fair place. The girl hesitated. Speak up, Poirot encouraged. Your mistress shall know nothing of this. Well, you see, sir, the mistress has her ways. But she's not stingy with the food. There's always something hot for supper, and you can put as much butter in the pan as you like. Besides, even if Eliza had wanted to change her place, she'd never have walked out like that. She'd have worked out her month. Otherwise, she'd lose a whole month's wages. And was the work very hard? Well, As I said, the mistress has her whims, always poking into corners looking for dust. But as for the lodger, the paying guest they call him, well, there's only his breakfast and dinner to serve, same as a master. They're both in the city all day. And do you like the master? He's a steady sort of gentleman, though a bit close with his money. I suppose you don't happen to remember Liza's last words before she went out? Oh, but I do. If there's any of that peach melba left over from lunch, she said, it'll do for our supper. There's a bit of bacon and fried potatoes, too. She was ever so fond of peach melba. I wouldn't be surprised if that was how they lured her away. Was Wednesday always her day out? Yes, hers is Wednesday and mine is Thursday. Poirot asked a few more questions and dismissed the girl. Mrs. Todd burst into the room, her face radiant with curiosity. I had no doubt she was deeply offended by Poirot's request for privacy, but he smoothed her over with great tact. A woman of your exceptional intelligence, madam, my friend explained, would surely find it insufferably tedious to sit through the routine questioning that we poor detectives are forced to conduct. For a lively mind, there is no greater trial than such procedures. Having completely dispelled Mrs. Todd's resentment, Poirot turned the conversation to her husband. He learned that Mr. Todd worked for a firm in the city and would not be home until evening. He is, no doubt, a man of many affairs and worries. Nothing ever worries him, Mrs. Todd declared. Well, get another cook, my dear. That was all he had to say. Ungrateful woman, good riddance to her. His calm just drives me wild. And what of the rest of the household, madam? You mean Mr. Simpson, our lodger? As long as his meals are on time, nothing else concerns him. And what is his occupation, madam? He's in a bank. Mrs. Todd mentioned the name of the bank, and I gave an involuntary start, remembering the article in the Daily Blair. How old is he? 28, I believe. A very pleasant young man. I should like to speak with him, and with your husband. With your permission, I shall visit you again this evening. And now, madam, I would advise you to lie down and rest. You look quite exhausted. And no wonder. First this business with Eliza, and then yesterday I spent nearly the whole day at the sales. You know what the crowds are like, not to mention the housework, one thing after another. Annie can't manage it all, and now she'll probably want to leave too. In short, I am tired to death. Poirot murmured a few sympathetic words, and we took our leave. A curious coincidence, I said. That runaway clerk, Davis, worked at the same bank as Simpson. Do you think it could mean anything? On the one hand, a thieving clerk. On the other, a missing cook. It is difficult to see a connection, unless one assumes that Davis visited Simpson, fell in love with the cook, and persuaded her to fly with him. I laughed, but Poirot was in no mood for joking and gave me a reproachful look. It could be otherwise, he said. Remember, Hastings, that a good cook can provide far more comfort to a man in hiding than a pretty face. He fell silent, deep in thought. A curious case, and not nearly so simple as it appears. I am interested, Hastings, decidedly interested. That evening, we returned to Prince Albert Road and spoke with both Mr. Todd and the lodger, Mr. Simpson. The master of the house proved to be an apathetic, thin-blooded man of about 40. Yes, he said vaguely. Eliza was a good cook. Frugal, too, which is extremely important. But why did she leave you so abruptly? Have you no theories on the matter? Todd gave a noncommittal shrug. Servants, you know. My wife takes it all far too much to heart. It is, in essence, a trifle. I tell her, get another cook, my dear, and be done with it. Why distress yourself over nothing? There was just as little to be gained from Simpson, a nondescript young man in spectacles. Well, yes, I believe I saw her occasionally, he said. An elderly woman, was she not? I more often encountered the other one, Annie. A very pleasant and obliging girl. Were they on good terms? Simpson replied that he didn't know for certain, but imagined they were. We have learned nothing of interest, mon ami, Poirot remarked once we were back on the street. Before leaving, We had been forced to endure another outburst from Mrs. Todd, who repeated everything she had said before, only at much greater length. "Are you disappointed?" I asked. "Did you expect to hear something vital?" "Perhaps, but I did not have high hopes." The following morning, Poirot received a letter. Upon reading it, he turned crimson with indignation and thrust the paper toward me. "Mrs. Todd regrets that she must dispense with the services of Monsieur Poirot. After consulting with her husband, she has concluded that it is absurd to involve a detective in a purely family matter. A check for 1 guinea is enclosed as a fee." "So," Poirot cried angrily, "and they think to rid themselves of Hercule Poirot in this fashion. As a favor, a great favor, I agree to investigate this trivial business, and they dispense with my services. This is the hand of Mr. Todd. Without a doubt, I say no 1,000 times no. I shall spend my own guineas, if I must, 1,000 guineas. But I shall get to the bottom of this." "I suppose so," I said. "But how?" Poirot calmed himself slightly. "First of all, we shall place an advertisement in the newspapers." "Wait. Yes, perhaps like this. If Eliza Dunn will communicate with the following address, she will hear of something to her advantage. Insert this in every paper you can think of, Hastings. Meanwhile, I shall make a few inquiries of my own. Go now. It must be done as quickly as possible." We did not meet again until evening, when Poirot condescended to share what he had discovered. I made inquiries at the firm where Todd is employed. On Wednesday, he did not leave his office. Furthermore, he has an irreproachable reputation. Todd is ruled out. As for Simpson, he was ill on Thursday, but on Wednesday he was at the bank. He was on friendly terms with Davis, as were all the other clerks. Nothing suspicious there, either. We must pin our hopes on the advertisement. On Poirot's instructions, the advertisement appeared daily for a week. The zeal with which he pursued the matter might have seemed strange, but I knew that for my friend this had become a point of honor. Consequently, he turned down several fascinating cases and fell greedily upon the Post every morning. He would look through it carefully and with a sigh set aside. Finally, our patience was rewarded. On the 5th day after Mrs. Todd's visit, our landlady informed us that a person by the name of Eliza Dunn had called. "At last!" Poirot cried. "Show her in." Immediately, the landlady hurried off, and shortly thereafter, Miss Dunn stood before us. She matched the description perfectly, tall, stout, and highly respectable in appearance. "I've come about the advertisement," she said. "There's obviously some misunderstanding. I've already been notified about the legacy." Poirot ceremoniously drew forward an armchair for her. "The fact is," he explained, watching our guest intently, "that your former mistress, Mrs. Todd, is very anxious. She does not know what became of you." Eliza Dunn looked utterly astonished. "Do you mean to say she never got my letter?" "She knows absolutely nothing." Poirot paused. "Perhaps you would be so kind as to tell us the whole story from the beginning?" Eliza Dunn needed no further coaxing. "On Wednesday evening, as I was coming home, I was stopped in the street by a gentleman, a tall man. He was with a beard and a very large hat. 'Miss Eliza Dunn?' he asked. 'Yes, that's me,' I said. 'My name is Crotchet,' said he. 'I've come all the way from Australia just to find you. I made inquiries and was told I might meet you here. Do you happen to remember your maternal grandmother's maiden name?' 'Jane Emmett,' I told him. 'Exactly,' he said. 'Well, Miss Dunn, you may not have heard of it, but your grandmother had a very dear friend, Eliza Leach. She went out to Australia in her time and married a very wealthy settler. Her children died young, and after her husband's death, she inherited the entire estate. A few months ago, Eliza Leach passed away, and according to her will, you are to receive a small house in Cumberland and a certain annual income.' I was struck all of a heap," Miss Dunn continued. "At first, I simply didn't believe it, and he must have seen that, for he smiled and said, 'You are quite right, Miss Dunn. Caution never hurts. Here are my credentials.' He handed me a letter from a Melbourne law firm. hearse and crotchet, and his business card. There are a few conditions in the will, he went on. You see, our client was a rather eccentric person. Firstly, you must take possession of the house no later than tomorrow. The second condition is a mere trifle. You must not work as a domestic servant. My heart sank at that. Alas, Mr. Crotchet. I said, I am a cook. Surely you were told that. Good heavens! I was under the impression you were a companion or a governess. How very awkward. And is my money gone, then? I asked, quite worried. He thought for a moment. There's always a way to circumvent such obstacles, Miss Dunn, he said at last. And we lawyers know them. But you must leave your position this very day. But the month isn't up. My dear Miss Dunn, you can leave at any moment, though you will lose your month's wages. But right now, time is of the essence. You must leave immediately by train from King's Cross. I shall lend you £10 for the journey, and you can write a note to your mistress at the station. I shall deliver myself and explain everything. Naturally, I agreed, and within the hour I was on the train. During the journey, I felt a bit uneasy. I even wondered if it was all some sort of swindle. You read about such things in the papers. When I arrived at the address, they were expecting me. The people there knew very little. They had received a letter from London instructing them to hand over the house and £150 for the first 6 months. A lovely little house it is, too, with £300 a year. Mr. Crotchet forwarded my things to me, but the mistress never wrote a single line, and for some reason she kept my trunk and sent my clothes packed in paper parcels. I did think she might have done it out of spite, because of my good luck, but if you say she never got my letter, then she likely just took offense. After listening intently to the cook's story, Poirot nodded with satisfaction. Thank you, mademoiselle. As you suspected, there's been a slight misunderstanding. Allow me to compensate you for your trouble. He handed the woman an envelope. Are you returning to Cumberland now? I have one small piece of advice. Try not to lose your skill at cooking. It is a talent that may always come in handy. How gullible she is, Poirot murmured as she left, though no more so, perhaps, than other women of her station. His face suddenly grew grave. Forward, Hastings. There is not a moment to lose. Fetch a taxi while I write a note to Jap. When I returned, Poirot was already waiting at the doorstep. Where are we going? I asked anxiously. First, we must give this note to a messenger. Having done so, my friend climbed into the taxi and gave the address. Clapham, number 88, Prince Albert Road. So we're going back there? But of course. Though to be honest, Hastings, I fear we are too late, and our bird has flown. What bird? Poirot smiled thinly. The inconspicuous Mr. Simpson. What? I exclaimed. Come now, Hastings. Do not tell me you still understand nothing. Well, the cook was lured away, I said, feeling slightly stung. But why? Why did Simpson need to get rid of her? Did she know something about him? Absolutely nothing. In that case, Simpson required something that belonged to the cook. Money? Her Australian legacy? No, my friend, something else entirely. Poirot paused for dramatic effect. A shabby, tin-bound trunk. I stared at him in disbelief. Poirot's words sounded preposterous. I began to suspect he was pulling my leg. But if he wanted a trunk, he could have bought one. A new trunk would not serve. He needed an old one that had seen the world. Specifically, her trunk. Look here, Poirot. I burst out. This is going too far. You're joking with me. You lack both common sense and the imagination of a Simpson, Hastings. Consider, on Wednesday evening, Simpson stops the cook. It is easy enough for him to obtain a business card and letterhead from a law firm to ensure success. He is willing to pay £150 and a year's rent for a house in Cumberland. Miss Dunn does not recognize him. She is deceived by the beard, the hat, and a slight foreign accent. Now surely you see what really happened on Wednesday, aside from the minor detail of Simpson pocketing £50,000. Simpson? But it was Davis. If you would permit me to continue, Hastings? Simpson knows the theft will be discovered on Thursday afternoon. On that day, he intercepts Davis as he goes to lunch. Perhaps he confesses to the crime and, feigning repentance, promises a hand over securities. One way or another, he lures Davis to Clapham. The maid has her day off on Thursday, and Mrs. Todd is at the sales. The house is empty. When the theft is discovered and Davis is missing, no one will doubt that Davis is a thief. Meanwhile, Simpson, present at his desk, remains perfectly safe. And Davis? Poirot made an expressive gesture and slowly shook his head. It seems too monstrous to believe, yet there is no other explanation, mon ami. The murderer's only difficulty was disposing of the body, but Simpson had planned everything. One detail struck me immediately. On Wednesday night, Eliza Dunn clearly intended to return home. Her remark about the peach melba proves it. Yet, when they came for her trunk, it was already packed. It was Simpson who sent for the carrier on Friday, having already stowed the cook's belongings inside. What was there to suspect? A servant quits and sends for her things. They are packed and sent in her name, likely to some railway station near London. On Saturday evening, Simpson, in his Australian persona, claims the trunk and redirects it elsewhere to be called for. Even if the trunk were opened, what could be proven? Only that a bearded Australian sent it from a certain station. It could never be linked back to Prince Albert Road. Ah, here we are. Poirot's intuition did not play him false. Simpson had vanished 2 days prior. However, he did not escape justice. Through the use of the telegraph, he was intercepted aboard the Olympia en route to America. As for the trunk, addressed to a Henry Wintergreen, it drew the attention of railway officials in Glasgow. It was forced open, and inside they found the body of the unfortunate Davis. Poirot never cashed Mrs. Todd's check. Instead, he had it framed and hung it on the wall of our sitting room. It shall serve as a reminder, Hastings, never despise a trivial case. A missing cook and a monstrous murder. Truly, it has been one of my most interesting cases.